Hi, welcome to another edition of Counterpunch with Trevor Loudon, the show that's exposing the rapidly unfolding world communist revolution that's unfortunately now turning kinetic in Ukraine. This episode is going to focus on more of the Russian propaganda out there. It is my contention that Russia's invasion of Ukraine is the first step in World War III, and if Ukraine falls, we can expect to see Europe under pressure. We can expect to see chaos in the Middle East and the Far East as well. America could be fighting a 4 or 5 front war pretty darn soon if things do not go well. First, I'd like to give an example of some recent Russian propaganda that came across my desk. It was sent to me by a very pro-Putin, very prominent US Christian gentleman. This man is a good man. He's done a lot of great work for the movement, but he's been completely sucked in by Putin and his intelligence communist agenda. This man genuinely thinks Putin is Christian and that Putin is going to save us from the bad guys in the West. This gentleman claimed the article by a Swiss intelligence officer who worked in the highest branches of NATO, and that this gentleman, his name is Jacques Bald, is a man of impeccable credentials. Therefore, his word should be a gold standard for anybody wishing to understand this conflict. The article was basically a very long and very well documented defense of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It detailed the Russian side of the Donbass insurrection of 2014 when pro-Russian separatists carved off some of Ukraine's sovereign territory. It justifies that. And it gives a lot of good facts and a lot of good reasoning. And if you didn't really know the situation, it would be very easy to be convinced by it. This article is now getting huge play on Twitter, on Facebook. Left and right are supporting it. You know, you've got Christians, conservatives sending it around, and open communists sending it around. Because unfortunately now many Christians, conservatives, social movement people are now on the same page as the radical communist left when it comes to defending Russia and demonizing Ukraine. The version I got came through Postal magazine, a very clearly pro-Russia website. The site carries regular commentary from Alexander Dugin, who was once a Putin advisor, and also the National Bolshevik movement, the Natbolds, which is a sort of subcurrent of extremists in Europe and the United States who worship Putin, basically an amalgamation of what Dugin would call the left wing of the Nazi movement and the right wing of the communist movement, if you can believe that. A very, very destructive movement that has infiltrated into many sectors in Europe here, basically looks to Putin for leadership and guidance. Now, the article's author, Jacques Bald, is a regular commentator on the Russian propaganda channel RT, formerly Russia Today. We know that organization was set up by the KGB and promotes Russian propaganda all over the world. And thankfully in several Western countries, including the United States, I believe it has been recently shut down, as it should have been long ago. Bald has also defended the pro-Russian Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. He has also claimed that the poisoning of the ex-Russian intelligence officer Sergei Skripal and his daughter in England, they almost died, underwent extensive medical treatment over months, that was a result of food poisoning. He also claimed that Putin's political opponent, Alexei Navalny, who was also poisoned, probably the work of the Russian mafia, not Putin. He would never do something like that. Bald also serves on the College of National Advisors, basically the advisory board to a Paris-based organization, and my French is a little rusty, so bear with me, the Centre Français de Recherche sur les Renseignements, or the French Centre for Intelligence Research. Now, serving on the same board as Mr. Bald is Colonel Igor Nikolaevich Prelin of Russia. Now, Prelin is described in the website's own words as a former career KGB officer from 1962 to 1991, and he served at the KGB's training school and was an instructor to no less than Vladimir Putin. He was also the press officer, propagandist, for the last president of the KGB before it became FSB, General Khrushchev. So this man Bald serving on the same board as a senior leader of the KGB, a senior propagandist, a trainer of Putin. This is okay. This gives this man Bald impeccable credentials, according to at least one very prominent American social conservative. Now let's talk about the biolabs, because the biolabs are on everybody's mind. You know, we're all spooked out. We've all been traumatized by the COVID-19 virus, which almost certainly was a deliberate release from a Chinese biolab. So when Putin talks about going to Ukraine to shut down American biolabs, people are thinking, wow, this is good. I can understand why Putin's doing this, because the virus, according to some propaganda, came from the CIA. It was partly funded by America, and there may be some truth in that. The Fauci organization has been accused of that. But we do know that the release came from the CCP, from Communist China, which is an ally of Russia, by the way. So a lot of people are thinking, well, okay, I can see why Putin did this. He wants to prevent the next pandemic because the Ukrainians are under the control of the CIA and they have these horrible biolabs who are ready to unleash a new pandemic on the world. That's the narrative that the Russians are pushing out there. The truth is actually way more boring. The Soviet Union had the world's largest bioweapons program and convention of several treaties, completely illegal, and almost certainly does have, still today, the world's largest bioweapons program. Ken Allebeck wrote a great book a few years ago called Biohazard. He was the former head of Russia's bioweapons program. He left Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The strategic retreat of the Soviet Union, I would say. And he revealed in his book that the Russians had massive programs and labs all over Russia, the Soviet Union, and they were working on weaponizing anthrax, smallpox, and the plague, as well as countless other human and animal diseases, and even crop diseases. They had the world's largest bioweapons program, and they were going to use it against the West whenever it came the time to do so. Now, most of the current biolabs remaining in Ukraine are run by the Ukrainian government, and they're used for legitimate biological research, you know, crop, pests, etc. And I believe they're probably also used to monitor Russia's bioweapons program. When the Soviet Union retreated and Ukraine became an independent country, many of these Russian biolabs remained on Ukrainian soil. Not so much the really heavy-duty ones, because the Soviets tended to keep the real bioweapons programs inside Russian territory where they could be less easily compromised or taken in an invasion, etc. But still, there were Russian biolabs in Ukrainian soil, and there were thousands of scientists working in these biolabs who had access to all sorts of information. So a program was actually established in conjunction with the Ukrainian government, the American government, and some European governments, and it was actually set up to run and finance these biolabs for a period of time. So the thousands of scientists working in them didn't take their skills to Al-Qaeda or Syria or Iran or North Korea and unleash those skills on the world as terrorist weapons. And these biolabs were turned to legitimate purposes. The scientists were kept employed, and I am sure they were also used to monitor Russian programs. And it is quite possible too that some of them were used to develop counters to those Russian programs. But we know for sure they were turned to legitimate purposes, and they were funded to stop the scientists leaving the country and turning their skills over to terrorists or enemy nations. It was a sensible program, folks, but it's been turned on its head by Russian propaganda to make it look nefarious. This is what the Russians do. This is what the communists always do. They accuse others of what they are doing themselves. This is their pattern. It's been going on since the Bolshevik Revolution, even before, and it certainly hasn't changed under Putin. It's only amped up. Now, much has also been made of President Zelensky's ties to Klaus Schwab's infamous World Economic Forum. You know, Klaus Schwab, who openly talks about world government, a crazy man who talks about implanting chips in human heads.
Aujourd'hui, au bout de ça, on parle de puces qu'on pourra s'implanter. Ce sera quand ça?
Certainement dans les 10 années à venir. Et d'abord, on va les implanter dans nos vêtements, c'est-à-dire wearables, comme on le dit. Et après, on pourrait s'imaginer qu'on les implante dans nos cerveaux ou dans notre peau. Et à la fin, peut-être il y a une communication directe entre notre cerveau et le monde digital.
Klaus Schwab basically pushing communism, folks. The World Economic Forum and the sort of New World Order is a euphemism for world communism. But many people have been drawn into the orbit because many nations participate in this, and some people are signed up and don't even know they are signed up to the World Economic Forum, or they're quoted as global leaders. Zelensky has spoken at least once to the World Economic Forum, and some say he was part of the Global Young Leaders Program, though I have not found the documentation for that yet. And so therefore, because Zelensky is tied to this, he is part of the New World Order. He's promoting communism with George Soros and Klaus Schwab, and therefore Putin, who opposes the New World Order, so we're told, Putin, who is against the globalists, so we're told, is justifying and invading Ukraine, and we should actually be grateful to him for doing so. That is the message that millions of conservatives and Christians and patriots are now spreading around the world. The invasion is justified because Zelensky's a globalist and Putin is saving us from the New World Order. Well, again, there's a little bit more to this. In reality, politicians from all stripes, some good, some bad, have been part of the Global Young Leaders Program or spoken to the World Economic Forum. President Trump spoke to the World Economic Forum, and he used the occasion to completely lambaste socialism. Great, it was a fantastic speech.
These alarmists always demand the same thing: absolute power to dominate, transform, and control every aspect of our lives. We will never let radical socialists destroy our economy, wreck our country.
New Zealand's Marxist Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has been part of the Global Young Leaders Program. But others who've been named as affiliated with Global Young Leaders Program and called Ivanka Trump, Republican Rep Dan Crenshaw, also Joe Biden's Marxist Secretary of Transport, Pete Buttigieg, and also former Hawaiian congressman and favourite of the US libertarian movement and the anti-globalist movement, Tulsi Gabbard, a long-time conduit of Russian and Syrian propaganda. Putin has also addressed the World Economic Forum. Here he is, pictured with Klaus Schwab. They have a long-term connection. Russia has been involved in the World Economic Forum since the beginning of the World Economic Forum at a very, very high stage. They just got kicked out of the WEF because the optics didn't look very good, but they were valued partners for many, many years, and Putin has played way more role in the WEF than Zelensky ever has. Now, Klaus Schwab, by the way, has a bust of Vladimir Lenin in his bookcase. So why would Klaus Schwab, who's telling you you will own nothing but be happy, who wants to launch a new world order, be idolizing V.I. Lenin, the father of the Bolshevik Revolution? Because the World Economic Forum is about globalism. Exactly. It's about world government. But the world government is a euphemism for world communism. It is the same thing. Putin is not protecting us from the New World Order. Putin and his good friend Xi Jinping, the leader of the Chinese Communist Party, are the enforcement wing of the New World Order. They are the enforcement wing of global communism. And I've shown in previous programs Putin's extensive communist ties, his promotion of a World Communist Youth Festival in 2017 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution, his extensive ties to Communist China, to Communist Nicaragua, to Communist Venezuela. Putin is a communist. Xi is a communist. The invasion of Ukraine is the first step towards the domination of Europe and the domination of the world. Yet he has used his propaganda machine to such an effect that many European patriots and many American patriots and Christians and conservatives, they believe that Vladimir Putin's invasion of the Ukraine is to stop the globalist movement, is to protect us from Biolabs, to protect us from bogus Nazis. All of this is Russian propaganda, but millions of people have been sucked in by it. The future of the world hangs in the balance here, folks. If Ukraine can stop Putin, we have some chance of stopping the global communist movement. We should be so grateful that the Ukrainians are so tough and so brave and are standing up. We should be grateful for President Zelensky for his brave stand, refusing to bail on his people, refusing to take safe passage, standing in the capital, talking to his troops with the bombs raining around him, with Russian assassination squads after him and his family. It is appalling that some people call this man a globalist or a Nazi. A Jewish president, a Nazi. The Maidan Revolution was not fomented by the CIA. The Maidan Revolution actually kicked out a pro-Russian president from Ukraine who'd won a fraudulent election. A little bit like Joe Biden, don't you think? And they established a free nation, and Zelensky, a great admirer of the American founding fathers, has actually been the best anti-corruption president Ukraine has ever had. Ukraine's not perfect, Zelensky's not perfect, but the Ukrainian people are heroes, and Zelensky is a heroic leader, and we should be on their side, not being gulled by tens of thousands of Russian military intelligence officers pouring absolute lies and garbage into our internet on a daily basis. We need a little more discernment, folks, because the future of the world hangs in balance here, and you don't want to be spreading Russian propaganda that is going to serve to enslave your own country and your own children. So I don't expect you to take what I've said. Do your own research. Look for the Russian connections to the propaganda you are spreading. The aggressor has to put out more propaganda because they have to lie to justify what they do. Ukraine was attacking nobody. Please pass this around. Share it with your local Putin lover, your local Russian apologist. But really share it with people who are hanging on the fence, because most people are really caught in a fog of confusion here. What was a black and white issue has become now very grey, and I'm hoping this video will help to bring a little more clarity back. So thanks very much for watching. Let's all stand firm with Ukraine. Let's stand against lies. Let's stand against communism and stand for a free Ukraine, a free Europe, and a free America, and eventually a free Russia. So thank you all for watching. God bless the brave people of Ukraine. God bless the poor people of Russia who are being drawn into the struggle. God bless America, and God bless everyone who loves freedom. Thank you so much.